Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. We're having Matt Light in, former Patriots great, always a Patriots great, to discuss the 2023 Patriots as they head into their season, and also to discuss just life in general post-NFL. And Matt, we were just talking right before we came on. You said, I don't know if they have as much fun in that locker room as we used to. And I surmise that some of that might have to do with it's just a different vibe because Bill is a different entity for these guys. Go ahead. And welcome. I didn't even say that.
Well, no, great to be with you. Good to see you. It seems like yesterday that, you and I are both in the locker room. You're covering, doing what you always do. And then all of a sudden you think about it and it's like, man, it's been a decade plus since that time period that the way we did it back then was definitely different. The way the game's being played today is definitely different. And the type of player that walks into a locker room today is so different, right? So, I always feel like the old man telling these kind of stories, but I think the way we approached every day was just A, we want to have fun doing what we're doing. And then B, we want to be the best at what we do. And while a lot of those same, mindsets are in the players today, there's also what you brought up earlier. And that is, if you're a guy that gets drafted and you walk into the New England Patriot locker room, the only thing you're thinking is, I am literally being coached by the greatest to ever do it in the history of the game, right? And it's intimidating. And I used to see it towards the end of my career. These guys would come in and they'd be like, oh my gosh, like that's Bill Belichick. And he's talking to me and he's dogging me on film. And, I better get, and, everybody gets really tight. And there's a lot of, I don't want to say fear, but healthy fear, right? Mm-hmm. That they got to perform at their best. And back in the day, we just used to, bust Bill's chops and, mess with him. I mean, all kind of fun stuff that put him more on a human level. And I just don't think that they see that today. I think it's all business, which it should be, right? There should be a business, but, there needs to be a good mix as well, right? You have to have guys that can keep it light, all pun intended, have a little fun, tell a few jokes, overcome what is a very stressful environment with a little bit of levity when it's needed.
Mm-hmm. The success, though, I think probably leads to the ability to have the laughs. I mean, it's hard if you lose, 30-10 and give up 5 sacks and run for 11 feet. I mean, it's grab acid.
Yeah, it's a bad time to start, telling jokes and messing around with your head coach for sure. You know what though? I think that they kind of go hand in hand a little bit though, Tom, right? Like when you've heard this saying, work hard, play hard. It's been around for a long time. The reason is because for those that put in the maximum output, right? That work the hardest, you have to have an outlet to counteract all of the stress and the time. You got to be able to step away a little. We were able to have a healthy balance of that. So we worked really, really hard. But when we had fun, man, did we have fun. I mean, we had probably as much fun as any team has ever had that's had the amount of success that we had. So I don't know if that's a statistic that you can have in the NFL Network, but I think they are, very notable.
There's a smiles per minute, smiles per game, smiles per month. And you guys got to extend it. I mean, in volume, you guys are having friggin' parades and dance parties and and ring ceremonies. See, that's with way more smiles than other teams had available to them. So that's a win for you guys.
Well, and at the same time, it was also miserable, right? Like there were times where literally in the middle of like your most successful stretch, all you're hearing is how terrible we are and how we're never going to win a game if we continue to do these 5 things. And you're like, well, coach, we ran 86 plays on offense and you only brought up 5. Like, what about the other 81? Can we talk about those? Nope, absolutely not. We're on to the next week. And, so we put in a lot of effort and we had a lot of fun. And I think we did it with our own little swagger, our own style. And man, we took pride in that. We really did.
Some good players were on that team too. All of those teams, all the way through. I mean, the guys that you played next to, whether it was Stephen Neal or Logan Mankins or actually was Stephen on the other side? Yeah.
Yeah, Steve was right. I mean, I had the Andrewsies and I had Damian Woody back in the day. Yep. I had obviously Logan, my wingman for the longest stretch. And man, we had great players, great attitude, players. And we had fun. And I think that's a component that gets overlooked today, right? You know what people want to talk about today? They want to talk about, how gifted a guy is athletically. They want to talk about all these individual things like, what this guy can do and what that guy can do and what he's bringing to the table, what we're forgetting. And they also want to talk about how much money they're making and points they score them on, their fantasy leagues and all that stuff. And when you think about it, this fantasy-driven world that we're in, right, it negates how important it is to play as a team, to play as a unit, to take the field relying on the guy next to you, knowing that he's putting in the max amount of effort, not taking plays off, not taking days off, right, but actually in the fight with you. That's what we're not talking about enough today.
And I think, too, and I have more questions germane to the 2023 Patriots, but we got room. This is a podcast. I think just the way society is, and I heard you talk about this on Good Morning Football, we are more self-focused by the nature of our phones and our social media accounts and how other people regard us. And people aren't more selfish. They're just more aware that there is a community of people who are weighing in on who you are and how you are. So you're more self-focused, I think. And I think individuals, players, reporters, whoever is more self-focused necessarily than group-focused.
Yeah. Look, we used to talk about, in the locker room, Bill would bring up points like you got to ignore the noise, right? Don't worry about what everybody's saying outside the organization. Don't fuel the hype. That was another point, right? Don't play into something that's been a storyline from somebody outside our organization that couldn't possibly know what's going on in here. And then now you're feeding the same nonsense, right? So ignore the noise. Don't fuel the hype. Manage your expectations and speak for yourself. Those were things that Bill hammered home on a regular basis. And I got to tell you, if you're in business, if you're a CEO, if you're a manager, you can take those same 4 principles and apply them to any successful organization, and they will make an impact because it forces you as an individual to understand that you're a part of a bigger organization, of a plan, and it's not all about you. So just manage what you do, speak for yourself. Don't fuel all that stuff. Ignore the noise around you and focus on what you have to do. Or as we like to hear over and over again, just do your job, right? Just do your job. And I think there's comfort in that. What's gotten lost, though, in my opinion, is the ability for guys to thrive in that kind of an environment. And here's why, Tom. You know this, but you don't talk about it enough. And either does anyone else. I've been beating this drum for a decade now. When I left the game, I played 1 season under the 2011 CBA, which is still the dominant force in how things are being run in the league now, right? Over that decade, these young players coming into the league don't have a chance to practice the game the right way, to get enough snaps, to get their body in physical condition, but maybe even more importantly, to mentally be able to take on the rigors of an entire NFL season. So what we need to be talking about is how we can get back to playing a safe game that puts these guys in the best position to finish a season. I mean, look at the number of guys. I've been saying this for a decade. Watch the number of guys that drop in the preseason. watch the number of guys that drop in the regular season, and it's not in line with what it used to be. We made all these changes to the game in the name of player safety, health, and wellness, yet the game is less safe today than it was a decade ago plus when I played. Something needs to change.
It is interesting. Some of that, to me, even as big as you were, I think you would played at 305-ish. Guys are bigger and bigger and bigger. Now it's 340, 350. I think that the physics is different. I'm not disputing anything. I find it interesting because I think that the new CBA has reduced the amount of reps for players, the amount of practice time, the amount of contact, which does impair or at least alter the product in September and October. What I've seen and observed with Bill, though, is a lessening of urgency. There was a period of time where he felt as if the Patriots can ramp up. We'll be fine. We'll be okay. We'll figure it out. And I think now slowly easing into the pool is to the Patriots' detriment because they're not beginning the seasons well and they're not closing them well either. And I just find it different, a different approach from Bill.
Well, it's a forced approach. I mean, what are his options? I mean, when you have rules that are in place, if you break them, you're going to pay for it. And look, it's not as if, teams can, hide what they're doing. There's over 50 guys in a locker room. They all have a voice, right? And they're all being told by the union, this is how we have to do things. And by the way, if those are the rules, that's how it should be done.
And interjecting too, Matt, what was your role as a union rep? So, I mean, you were one of the very involved people.
Yeah. So I became a rep because I wanted to know where my money went. That's what got me into it. Right. And then, I had guys say like, hey man, you should continue to represent us. And, I took that to heart and I did. And then I became, one of the executive committee members. And I was on the executive committee when we signed the new CBA. And I said at the time, I don't think this is going to go the way we wanted. I mean, look, everybody wants things to be safer. Everybody wants to create an environment where you don't see the catastrophic injuries and you don't see the trauma from a concussive, traumatic brain injury standpoint. And on that note, we have gotten light years ahead of where we were, even when I played, when it comes to TBI, when it comes to, the concussive episodes and not stopping them because you're never going to stop them, but how you deal with them once they occur. They're so much farther down the road. And that's a blessing for a lot of these players, right? But where we've actually gone the wrong way is basically in everything else. I mean, again, Tom, look at how they call the games, the rules that are now in place that didn't used to be there, how that affects the game, how that affects the outcome of many of the games, but most importantly, the product on the field. Even the people that are diehards that love the game and would never say anything negative, they will admit that the product is far less than what it used to be in terms of the simple things. We're talking simple, Tom. We're talking about just lining up right? Line of scrimmage penalties. When you don't practice, right? As an offensive lineman, one of the most intimidating things is when you're injured and you're not able to practice with your team and you got a big game on the road in a place like Indianapolis. And you can't hear anything. And the timing and the communication are so critical, period, but more so in a game like that. How do these guys get themselves ready to go? They can't. They don't get enough time. So what you see as a product is stupid line of scrimmage penalties, holding because of sloppy technique and guys that just aren't physically in tune with where they should be at that time of the year. You see mental errors, guys running the wrong routes and not just a couple of times. And by the way, where you see it a lot? Right here in New England. Yeah. I hate to say it, but that's not a hallmark of a Bill Belichick team. But again, Bill's real advantage was taken away from him when this CBA got signed because we used to practice and not full pads and all that, but we used to practice ourselves, to your point, into the best playing position. It was a huge strength of ours to be able to go out and work in the off season, in the regular season, in the middle of a hard, regular season where most teams are pulling back. Mm-hmm. We're actually pushing forward. And that gave us a massive edge. That edge is gone.
Do you feel that Bill is a kinder, gentler coach in general?
Well, again, I think the way you view your coach is how things are going, throughout an entire season, right? And I mean, look, they don't even put pads on after week 3, right? I mean, right. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
a couple times you have like a certain number that you can do during the year, and you keep them in your pocket. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to refresh my memory, but I think you have a number of padded practices, and you can either burn through them early or hold them for later.
And what I can guarantee you is that we hit more in training camp than they'll hit for the entire year. And that's not that. Look, again, uphill.
It's unbelievable. The way they've changed the amount of hitting and to the ground tackling.
No doubt. So how could Bill not? I mean, he doesn't have an option. He has to. He's going to come across as a nicer, more in tune with, like, I don't know how you feeling, how you doing, because there's not a chance for him to beat him up. So, and the guys that are coming in are used to that, right? I don't want to say coddled. I mean, look, there's a lot of football playing Jessies, as Dante Scarnecchia would say, guys that want to go out there and hit you in the mouth, but they don't have the opportunity to do it either. It's like putting one hand behind your back and then just saying, yeah, let's go at it. Well, okay, to the degree that I can, I guess we are.
So why not maximize these preseason games? I'm sure that you saw the Patriots preseason. You had 3 games, and you have 28 days off before the first game comes after the third preseason game, practically. Why not maximize that opportunity to get out there and play?
2 reasons, right? You don't, like we used to have a coach that always say, like, you don't see dogs stretching, let's just get out there and hit. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yes, I do. I see dogs stretch all the time. Like, what are you talking about, coach? Like, dogs literally do stretch, but okay, let's go hit it. You're not going to put your guys out there and have them, go deep into a preseason game because they haven't hit, period, anyway. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, if you're not doing it in practice, don't run around on Thursday night and kill each other.
Exactly. So again, the rules are the same starting from day one. So he doesn't have the ability to just say, okay, well, we're going to get all of our time, with our starters during the preseason where we're dialing it up and the first flying for real. That's not a good idea because those guys, their bodies aren't ready for that. So you're forced to play this long game. And then look, number 2, these guys aren't used to going out there and hitting like that anymore. Mm-hmm. It only took a number of years to create that environment, so we went from just back in the day, 3 practices in training camp to 2 practices a day to, maybe 1 in full pads each day to now you can't go back to back in full pads, period. These guys just aren't used to playing the game that way.
Hey, get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed! Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/NSBO and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. That's FanDuel.com/NSBO. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
21 plus and present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Hope is here. GamblingHelplineMA.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. NFL Sunday ticket offer ends 9/18/23. No refunds. Terms and embargoes apply. $100 off NFL Sunday ticket, not YouTube TV. YouTube TV base plan required to watch YouTube TV. Redemption requires a Google account and current form of payment. Commercial use excluded. Subscription renews. Cancel anytime.
So we're joined by Matt Light, Patriots great, and I need to get your off-the-cuff assessment of the 2023 Patriots.
So I would say this, right? Billy O, love the guy. Have a ton of respect for how he approaches the game. I like the way he calls the game. It'll be interesting to see, some of the things that he's learned since he was here last and how he'll incorporate those things, the different people he was around, whether it was the Nick Sabans or whoever it was, his time as a head coach. Those things have definitely changed him to a degree, but he's coming back to a very familiar system. And he's got a decent amount of weapons to work with, right? So I'm excited for Billy O. I'm excited for Clem and what he's going to do with the offensive line. I feel pretty good about our defense, but to be honest with you, I always feel good about our defense. It's Bill Belichick, right? I mean, so, regardless if you have the certain puzzle pieces that you really wanted, or, you got some guys that are beat up or not out there playing as much, I always feel good about the defense. Special teams, I mean, I think we all have some question marks in our mind. Are we going to have the special teams of last year, or are we going to have a much more improved unit that won't go out there and make, some of these killer plays that literally put you on the wrong end of the contest? So
yeah, there was such a quality control slip on special teams, on offense, pre-snap penalties, holds, just random missed blocks, timeouts burned.
Why, Tom? So when you have something that is such a focal point like your offense, you're in that can't get right mentality, right? Like you're trying stuff, you're trying to figure out how to correct the stuff that isn't going well. Well, then that bleeds into other areas, because now you're having to take a lot more time to address this, and then things start to slip, like special teams, which, by the way, are probably the first thing that slips anytime that there's a breakdown somewhere. It could be with one player. You could have a cancer in the locker room, and he's taking the wind out of everybody's sails, and things start to get impacted. And special teams, for whatever reason, tend to be like the first area where you start to see a little disturbance in the force. Last season, special teams was a part of the problem, but the offense was the glaring, issue, clearly.
Well, the funny thing is, too, when you mention that, look, Bill was the overlord and always has been. But last year, the decision to put Matt Patricia in charge of the offense meant that he was going to have to spend more time there, which meant less time on special teams, less time with the defense, more focus on the offense. And that's where I think the quality control really started to dip team wide, which was in a stunning fashion. I mean, the end of that Raiders game was just perplexing. I mean, how can you have guys who willfully at that juncture had just said, we're going to try and make a play because we don't think that we have a shot otherwise if we put overtime? I mean, that felt like what that was. Let's just try and do something.
Well, and that's a frustration thing, right? I mean, you see that in other teams. We're not used to seeing that here in New England.
I have a theory that Bill underrated how good Dante was, how good Josh was, and Billy O'Brien was, Charlie was. And he certainly underrated how good Tom was. And the it will work itself out approach that seeped in over the course of 2 decades doesn't apply now. There's got to be more urgency, I think. Does that theory hold any water?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like maybe you've been around the locker room for a few years. I don't know. Maybe you've seen something. Look, you know what the hardest thing in the world to do is to criticize something that works, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at Bill's career, you look at what he's been able to do, and as a guy that spent 11 seasons being coached by him and the rest of that staff, really hard for me to sit there and throw stones, right? But everybody has the things that they do, really well, and then okay, and then there's a few things that everyone has that they're just not that great at. Bill has always valued the defensive side more than the offense. Now, would he say that? I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bill's going to look at it, like he does a lot of things. He's going to take this, I don't want to say scientific, but he's going to take this very calculated, mathematical, scientific look at each area, and he's going to figure out where the strengths and weaknesses are, how he wants to game plan for certain things, right? Because we are a game plan team here. We're not we do what we do kind of a club, right? And so I don't think he would say that, but everything in his actions say that. And to your point, and to my point that I made many years ago, if you allow Dante Scarnecchia to walk out of your coaching staff, out of your world, after all the years that he was there, and seemingly no one was there to shadow him in the last year or 2 years and figure out what he did best themselves, you missed a major opportunity. And look, we were blessed to have Dante come back and resume his reign as the offensive line coach. And, there's the system right there that has, or there's the one group that has the most guys on the field at any one time. So if you're going to have a really good coach at any position, and I would argue that, it may even rival what you need out of a coordinator, a guy like Dante, because guess what? When the coordinator's sitting there calling his top plays to start the game, and he's going through those starters, and you have a guy like Dante in the room, and he says, oh, no. No, you can't do that early in the game. That's going to mess up my guys. That's a valuable guy to have on your staff. And so, yeah, Bill, I think, probably took for granted what the offense needs the most when it comes to coaches and in some cases, key players. I mean, how do you let a guy like Logan Mankins leave your unit, leave your team? There's another one that blew my mind, right? He's a leader among men. Everybody respects him, not because of what he says as much as what he does every single day. So, I think there's a couple chinks in the armor. I don't want to highlight them too much because I know he'll crush me. But
the trump card then becomes, well, shit, we said goodbye to Logan and we won a Super Bowl that year. And that traces back to Tom, in my estimation, because that team started 1-3, and there was a gentleman named Jordan Debbie who was a wonderful guy, but not really that great on the offensive line at that juncture in his life. The team wins the Super Bowl anyway. And I think that those periods of time, 2013, you guys stunk. No offensive potency. Edelman's getting the ball thrown to him 19 times, literally. But by the end of the year, you're in the AFC Championship game. You're winning the Super Bowl. And a lot of that was by dint of the presence of Tom and him going to the whip to get you guys in a place. Don't want to overcredit one guy in a simplistic way, but he could figure it out and drag everybody with him.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, look, the Tom factor is one that, I don't even know how you put a rating on it, right? Like, you remove a guy like Logan, but you still have Tom. You're still going to do well if Tom Brady's on your team. There's no doubt about that. Going back to the Logan situation, when you subtract certain guys, like, again, we got away with a lot. We had guys that left our organization that, still were very instrumental in our success, and we were able to overcome that. And in some cases, it was a shot of adrenaline that we may have needed, right? Oh, man, if that guy can be, kicked to the curb, none of us are safe, right? So it's a good gut check at times, but there's also the long-term effect of those things because one guy can't do it all the time. We watched Tommy try to do that too often in some of those years where he was really the only shining light on the field at times, right? And so, yes, he was able to overcome a lot of the things that other teams wouldn't have been able to because he is that kind of a player. But ultimately, there are qualities that a guy like Logan Mankins possessed that you would just never allow to walk out of your organization for any reason.
Are you apprehensive at all about the Patriots offensive line situation right now? Adding in all the injuries, adding in the uncertainty, adding in the lack of reps, because I think the five out there, it's a representative offensive line.
Sure.
But when you look at, you got the Eagles out of the chutes, then you got Miami, then you got, a brutal schedule. I'd be a little edgy.
I think one way to look at it is that after week one, we're going to know where the problems are. If you started out with a weaker opponent, you may take a victory and say, oh, it's great, but we really didn't get tested. After this week one, you're going to know where the issues lie. Now, hey, look, maybe we'll be blown away because it is week one and there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, if you're a defensive coordinator and you're looking at this offense and you're saying, okay, what's Billy really going to do? And how's Mac really going to be performing? And where are the weapons that they're really going to kind of sneak in and formation us with and take advantage of certain areas? There's a lot of question marks. And so you're going to see a lot of jockeying for, what's the right mode? How do we want to attack this scheme on both sides of the equation, offensively and defensively? But the one thing that I guarantee is that there are going to be some glaring problems, and there's going to be some glaring problems up front. That's how it always is early in the season. Do I worry about this line based on the personnel and what they have to work with? Not really. I really don't. I mean, I've seen us go into seasons where no idea who the right tackle is really going to be. We got a guy, swinging from guard to guard position. Shoot, man, we used to play with a center that couldn't shotgun snap.
I know.
We still how's that possible? But we did it. So there's a lot of things you can overcome with great coaching and guys that are willing to be flexible. And we'll see if they have that.
Because the Patriots don't have what we would define as the most electric and explosive outside skill position players, you want them to be able to use a little chicanery, a little skullduggery, and cross defenses up. But if you're doing motioning and all kinds of different scheming, don't you really want to rely on that 5 guys up front to be just geniuses and 5 guys in one glove type thing? Because that's what I'm concerned about. They're going to have their hands tied a little bit in what they can do because of that lack of continuity so far.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think the way you overcome that, right? So again, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. They don't have the time to practice all those things either, right? So you have to dumb it down to a degree, or to the degree at which you game plan and just say, here's the things that we're going to focus on. So we're going to take the playbook and we're going to condense it down to here for that opponent, right? And when they do those things, that's a big help for certain guys that they're trying to nurse along or they're trying to develop a little bit throughout the season, build their confidence a little bit, right? And there's no doubt in my mind that Billy O will be able to scheme for some of those things, for some of the personnel that he's going to have to work with and that he's going to want to develop. He'll have the opportunity to do some of that. But look, Tom, if you want to, in my opinion, and this hasn't changed since the day I got into football, if you want to be a really good offensive unit, you have to have toughness up front with your 5 guys and your running backs and your tight ends. So you have to have a mentality that when we take the field, we're going to beat them up more than they're going to beat us up. And the only way to establish that is to run the ball. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to run the ball every single game, but you have to have the threat of being a good run team. And I know that flies in the face of all these superheroes that are betting on games and they want their fantasy numbers to go through the roof. I don't really care. I want to win championships, right? So when you have a guy like Trent Brown who blocks out the sun, you should be able to run behind a guy like that. When you got a guy like David Andrews who likes to get down and dirty, you should be able to feed that need. I want to see a team that can go out there and run the ball in a creative way, misdirection stuff, run it right down their throat, hit them on the edge, mix in some screens, some tear screens, some double screens, things of that nature. Because again, back in the day when we were crushing them, we had a really good screen game. We had a really good run game. And when those two things are going, everything else gets better in the passing game. So that's about as simple as it gets from an offensive strategy. How you execute that, that's a whole different story.
You had some geniuses too. I mean, when you look at that screen game and you're doing the Tom Brady double pirouette screen over to Kevin Falk and he goes from 0 to 60 like a water bug. It was something to watch.
Hey, look, it's the toughest thing, Tom, in the world to coach. Most people that have never coached a game wouldn't understand why that is. The timing is so important. The guys that are catching the ball, the guys that are coming in off the edges to get blocks at the second level. I mean, everything is a dance. It's the most artistic form of an offense when you have fat guys, or pigs on ice, as we used to be called, running out there. You got Steve Neal jumping over a defender to block the guy at the next level while the guy behind him is leveling him after Neal jumps. I mean, it's one of the greatest game aspects of the game of football to me and to many others. I can't harp on it enough, but it's also the most difficult thing to execute.
Really cool. We should do a special on screen games.
Yes, you should, because that
What's your appraisal of Mac Jones? What do you like about Mac Jones? What do you wish was a little bit better?
Well, look, I mean, I like the way his rookie season ended. I like the way that he approached the game there. I don't like what I saw last season for a lot of reasons, right? And as an offensive lineman, I don't ever want the guy behind me, to ever, put himself in a position that Mac did, right? So
in terms of?
Well, just in terms of the antics, the optics, right? Like look at the optics of it. Forget about the why. The why is irrelevant, right? There's a lot of reasons. Like if you went to our military and you asked some of our top generals if they agreed with what they had to do, they'd say, no, I did not. But I'm part of an organization. This is my duty, and I'm going to fulfill that duty with valor and integrity, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I contend that he sucked it up for so long and then finally said, you know what, this is absurd. And it was
but you know what? Even if that is the case,
can't do it.
It's bigger than you, Mac. It's bigger. It should be. It always has been for the organizations and the individuals that do it at the highest level. I mean, hey, by the way, not for nothing, you don't think that Tom Brady had the right to do that about 5 years into his 20-year career, and Mac's doing this 1 year in? You know what I'm saying? So, like, compare and contrast the best to ever do it in the history of the game to the guy that took his position and the things that have happened during these last couple of seasons. And there's just no place for it, right? So that's number one. I was disappointed in how that played out during the regular season. And I think it opened up the door to be a distraction for everyone else in that locker room. So he can't do those things. And do I think he's talented? Yeah, for sure. I know he's talented. This will be the year to see, can he put aside, the things that can really make a workplace difficult and just focus on being the best version of himself that he can possibly be.
You invoked the notion of, hey, if you're in the service, you do what you're supposed to do, regardless, you do your job. Understanding Bill's upbringing and the things that he values, do you think it was more exacerbating for him to see Mac act like that because it was a challenge to not only Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, but to Bill's authority in a very visible and outward way that was offensive to his DNA?
Oh, hey, by the way, forget about if it's Bill Belichick, any head coach, any coach, right? Anywhere, high school, Pop Warner, you name it. If you have a player that isn't, I don't want to be a homer, but drinking the Kool-Aid, right? If you have somebody that's, kind of playing their own music while everyone else is dancing to a different tune, it's going to stand out. It's going to be offensive. It's going to be abrasive. And how you deal with it today, again, that's a hard thing. Back in the day, you just condition the heck out of them and force them to do it over and over again until they got it right. Now it's a conversation, watch film, come into my office. There's no real way to send a message, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny because you want to be a good teammate and say, okay, well, I'm a leader. I probably should say something here about how ridiculous this is. But also you have to look up to how much damage will I do. I mean, I couldn't do it. I'm a blabbermouth.
Hey, listen, when I played, there were times that I may have said in the back of my mind, well, why didn't Bill just come ask me? I'll tell him the truth. You know, like why doesn't he just, I want him to come say, hey, Light, what do you think about this? And honestly, like, it wasn't even to be in a joking way. There's times where I'm like, this is dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, the reason that I never took it personal is because I have a great deal of respect for him. And by the way, I could never do his job half as good as what he does. So I am of the mindset that unless you're going to say something that puts you in a better position to lead than the guy you're going to criticize, you need to sit down, shut up, get in line, and just do your job.
You've been great. You got a couple more minutes for the irrelevant questions. This is the fun part. This has been fantastic. Irrelevant Questions is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. The first question I have for you, Matt Light, is it jarring when you see somebody wearing your number?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen. They're going to have a better looking body than any way that I ever wore that number. I mean, look, you know, not the most svelte character. So unless it's like a really just out of shape, chubby guy that forced himself into the locker room and stole the number and put it on, I'm probably okay with it. But, you know, early on, it was a little odd to see someone out there running around with the old 7-2.
It was tough for us too. One word to describe your time as a player.
Wow.
Three words.
I would say time of my life, man. We had so much fun. It was at 4.
Fair. Time of life.
Fun. One word, fun, man. We had fun.
One word to describe your post-NFL life. We're going to extend it to 5 words.
Oh, man. Learn to say no. No.
Really?
Yeah, well, you know, like when you played, Bill always said, hey, look, there's a drawer in your office at home, and everything that comes at you that has nothing to do with football, put it in that drawer, and when like mid-February comes around, you can open that up. It's been a decade plus, and I'm still pulling out things like, oh, I want to get to that. Oh, I want to do that. And it's like, okay, you got to learn to say no. You got to focus on what's most important. But it's been an awesome time being a civilian.
What's the most pissed off at Tom Brady that you ever got?
Did I ever get pissed off at Tom Brady? There was one time, though, that I was going to prank him. And this actually did tick me off. I had an epic prank lined up, and I'm talking like him in a squad car being arrested, a whole bunch of like hardcore Italians from Providence, you know, creating a scuffle. And that little son of a gun took a private jet down to New York the night that he was supposed to be eating dinner with us, getting, you know, arrested. So yeah, that's the one time.
Favorite stadium to play in? We pivot.
Ooh, you know, this is gonna be kind of a little bit of a surprise, I think. I always enjoyed Detroit. I know people look at me crazy, but there's something about the industrial feel. Like, you know about like, you know, Motown, you know about like the you know, the car industry and all the things that Detroit kind of stands for, right? But when you go there, you get this feel. It's this industrial, blue collar, Middle Earth kind of place. I always loved it.
It does when you drive in that city, and you're not really going to go to Detroit unless you're there on a work trip, to be honest. And
by the way, I probably should add, I knew we were going to win, so that didn't hurt either.
My favorite stadium in the NFL by far is Heinz Field, which isn't Heinz Field anymore, but Pittsburgh I thought was just electric.
Pittsburgh is amazing, and if you're there, you can actually feel the entire stadium rumbling with the fans and their feet and just, you know, it's a great environment.
The Patriots at Gillette Stadium should be rumbling in a couple weeks when your buddy Tom Brady returns. Tell everybody about what you have in store for lucky fans.
So we're doing another sweepstake, and when you do these things, it's for 2 reasons. A, you want to raise money for a worthy nonprofit. In this case, it's the Light Foundation, the work we do with kids through the outdoors and our leadership academy. But B, you want to offer people something where they can get in for very little money and it can be the biggest surprise of their lives, right? So in this case, for as little as $5 or $10, or spend whatever you want, you can get as many chances to win a trip to go see the return of the GOAT at Gillette Stadium in a suite. We've got dinner at Davio's. We got a custom tailgate. We've got, just overnight stay, so you don't have to worry about getting up the next day or getting out of there. It's going to be an incredible package to watch this game with Tommy to open the season. But maybe even more importantly, for those that win, the GOAT's going to come in. Tommy agreed to come in, say hello to the winners, make their day, take some pictures, sign some stuff. So you're going to get signed stuff. You're going to get to meet the guy. You're going to get to be at Gillette for the season opener. It's such an awesome package. And we're going to have a lot of friends in the suite too. So a lot of my former teammates, guys that, were out there playing on that very same field during some of the greatest moments in Patriot history, will be there to celebrate as well. So awesome package, awesome way to support the work we do at the Light Foundation. And for the 2 grand prize winners and their friends, they're going to have a heck of a night.
Unbelievable. That's a 6-figure value.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we've had people win packages like this, to your point, that are worth a lot and spend as little as $10, which I love. Awesome. I love that.
How do we do that?
CelebrateTB12.com. If you go to CelebrateTB12, you can get your tickets, and hopefully we'll see you at Gillette.
Love it. Thank you for being so generous with your time and so generous in the community. That's an amazing gift for folks, and miss you.
Yeah, buddy, right back at you, man. I'm not ready to go hit anybody, but I'll hang out with you on Zoom any day.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks, Tom.